afternoon, gentlemen of the American Fantasy Football League. This is your league reporter, Paul Glassman, coming at you. Now, I want to extend my deepest apologies for not getting a video out last week, but I will say I am still busy with other things going on in school. So as you know, I'm going to be talking about two teams this week, and the first team I'm going to be talking about is Bolo Power at 2-0 with 326.6 points to date. So, let's head on over to Bolo Power's page. Now, I was taking a look at their page earlier, and they are experiencing some bye week problems this week. As you can see here, Calais Campbell out with a bye. Bobby Wagner out with a bye. Tyrann Matthew, Kristen Michael, and Greg the Lang Zerline all out with bye weeks this week. And as you can see from Bolo Power's page here, they have not replaced their punter or their other linebacker. On their bench, they have Chad Greenway, but as you can see, he's listed as doubtful for this week. So it'll be interesting to see if Bolo Power is going to try and make any last-minute moves to pick up a linebacker, or if he's just going to say, hey, you know what? I've scored a boatload of points so far. I think I can do it without two players, but hey, we've seen crazier in the past. So the first guy I want to talk about is Matthew Stafford, and the season that he's having so far. Now, last week he didn't look that great against Green Bay, only scoring 5.6 points, but he still threw for close to 250 yards. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but he did have 2 picks and a fumble. So, coming up against this week's New York Jets defense, it's going to be interesting to see, especially after watching the Monday night game where the Jets blitzed just the daylights out of the Chicago Bears offense. Now, the Bears offensive line was really able to pick up the Jets defensive blitzing scheme pretty well. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the Lions look at that tape along with the defensive tapes from other Jets games and put up their game plan. Now, as you can see, Stafford has had a pretty decent season so far. Opening week, 346 yards for 2 touchdowns against the Giants, 291 yards for a touchdown and 1 interception against Carolina, and then last week against Green Bay. They did end up beating Green Bay, but had to rely on a lot of their defense to do it. Now let's take a look at Des Bryant, listed as questionable. This could be almost bad news for the Dallas Cowboys this week, as Bryant is obviously the number 1 receiver in the Cowboys lineup. It'll be interesting to see what's going on with him. So let's take a look. He was limited in Wednesday's practice with his shoulder problems. So who knows what that means for Sunday, but he's going up against the New Orleans Saints at home. So obviously this is a game that he wants to play in. As you can see here, the Saints have allowed the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wideouts. Bryant has had a hell of a season so far. The only game he really struggled was against Santa Clara, and hey, they have a great defense there. Scheduled to get 15.3 points this weekend, so I think it'll be a pretty decent game for him. Now, my sleeper this week is going to be Allen Hurns, wideout for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had 1 reception last week for 86 yards and a touchdown on a drive late in the 4th quarter. He is Jacksonville's number 1. But, as you can see here, Randall Cobb, Des Bryant, Brandon Cooks, and Antonio Gates, you don't really need a sleeper when you're playing for the Bolo Power team. Alright, the next team I want to talk about is the Prospect Hill Punishers. I did give John some guff a season for keeping his kicker and wasting a keeper on a kicker, but again, we've seen crazier things in the past. The first guy I want to talk about is his quarterback, Andrew Luck, who absolutely sliced and diced the Jacksonville Jaguars defense last week. Now, you may be saying to yourself, oh, well, that's not that big of a deal. But look what he has done so far this season. 370 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 interceptions against Denver. Denver has a pretty good defense. Philadelphia struggled a little bit in that Monday night game. 172 yards for 3 touchdowns, but 3 touchdowns is nothing to scoff at. And then 370 yards for 4 touchdowns with no interceptions last week against Jacksonville. He's playing an okay Tennessee defense this week, so I think he's going to be up around that 400-yard passing mark this week, along with 3 or 4 touchdowns and maybe 1 interception. And then you have to talk about a guy named Andre Johnson, the number 1 wide receiver for the Houston Texans here. He hasn't had that great of a season so far. Only nine points against the Redskins defense, 7 points against Oakland, who doesn't have a defense, and 2 points against the Giants last week. Now they're playing Buffalo this week, who's played very well so far. As you can see, he's projected to score 14 points this week, but hey, we'll see how things are going. I mean, 6 receptions, 4 receptions in the first in the first 3 weeks. 16 receptions total. That's not the Andre Johnson that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing an Andre Johnson who has about, 8 or 9 receptions for closer to 100, 150 yards, maybe a couple touchdowns. He has not caught a touchdown pass this season. No, he has not. So we'll see how that turns out for him. And now my sleeper, quote unquote, my sleeper for this week. Well, I'm going to have to go with E.J. Manuel. He's thrown just a heck of a job for the Buffalo Bills this week. But hey, with a guy like Andrew Luck at your helm, you don't really need E.J. Manuel until it is the bye week for Mr. Luck. So that is this week's video. If you like it, comment. If you don't, comment. If you, like I said, follow me on Twitter at pglassman99. Again, I apologize for not getting a video up sooner, but I do have other things going on in my life. Gentlemen, good luck this week, and go American Fantasy Football.